Hello, everybody. My name is Tiao. Grace was my god sister. Some of you may know me as Willie Tiao. I was born and raised here in Manhattan. I thought I would take a minute to kind of put Grace's life a little bit into context via her family and specifically what Grace meant to us as a Taiwanese American community. As Gail mentioned, Grace's family is from Kaohsiung, Taiwan, which is where my family's from. And Kaohsiung is the second largest city in Taiwan. It's in the south. And Taiwan, during that period of time, was under a very oppressive regime. And the people who were from Taiwan, the so-called native Taiwanese, they really struggled for a voice, for democracy. And Grace's parents and my parents were part of a very strong movement for Taiwan's democracy and independence. And it's probably one of the main reasons they decided to come to the United States. Now, I think it's really important to note that Uncle Clarence, Grace's father, my godfather, was one of the first, maybe the first, Taiwanese to come to Manhattan. And I think it's important to say that because basically many of us came because of them to Manhattan. And in my travels around the country meeting lots of Taiwanese Americans, Manhattan's actually kind of famous in the sense that Kansas State specifically was known as the military college for Taiwan independence because of people like Uncle Clarence and my father. And I think that's really important because I think it helps explain Grace's humanist view of the world. I think it explains why she always felt so, in arms with people who were oppressed, who didn't have a voice, who didn't have a chance. I believe that that's where those seeds came from. And probably more than anyone else in the Taiwanese community, she really paved a path, specifically very much for myself. Having been one of the first ones to come, and having gone to school so early, I very much followed her path. I also was very interested in politics from a very young age. I also, like Grace, was very involved in student council at MHS. When I went to college, and I was looking around, I found a school called Tufts that I had never heard of in Boston. And I vaguely remembered that Grace had gone there, and she had gone to the graduate school, Fletcher. And when I called her up, she's like, don't even think about it, just apply. And she's like, out of all the schooling I ever had, my Fletcher years were the best years. So I applied, I got in. Because of her, I also followed in her footsteps and got a Fulbright scholarship. I ended up working in Washington, D.C. for a number of years, including for our Senator Nancy Caspon, and later on for the Clinton and George W. Bush administrations. And when I made a decision, in the middle of Bush's first term to leave my kind of budding career in government and politics and go into the creative arts and go into entertainment and make films, Grace really, supported me. And I think that she always, like myself, always had this dream to tell our story to the world, tell the story of Taiwan to the world. And I ended up making a movie about Taiwan called Formosa Betrayed, which I hoped was part of that process of telling that story to the world. And Grace, I remember when I was raising financing for the film and going around to the Taiwanese communities all over the country, she said to me once, she's like, you were born to make this movie. And I thought, well, we were all born, very much to tell that story. And I think, Grace's final act with her fusion restaurant was part of that process, was to tell continue to tell that story about Taiwan and her family and our backgrounds and what that meant to us, and to infuse it, as she always did, in her own unique way, by bringing it here, you know, to Manhattan, Kansas. And I could, like Gail, go on and on about different stories, you know, experiences that I had with Grace. You know, my first trip to New York at 16 was staying at her house in NoHo, and her taking me to see Les Mis and the opera and the ballet. You know, there's just so many different memories in my life, and so many markers that she made such a difference. I know not just to me, but to everybody, I'm sure, in this room. But I just wanted to emphasize, at the end of the day, how important her life was and is to those of us who continue to do this work, who continue to want to tell the story. And it's very much she paved the path, and Grace will always kind of be my North Star.